Wait. I need the closed caption on the video.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we continue to explore world events in light of the State of the World Forum that we're going to be convening December 14th through 18th, in which we encourage all of you to sign up for. It'll be online. You can get information at stateoftheworld.forum. And it's something that you do not want to miss. The purpose of the State of the World Forum, as many of you know, is to explore the question of how humanity in this moment elevates its consciousness to deal creatively with what we're calling the four fundamental truths of our time, meaning truths that are true no matter who you are or where you are anywhere in the world. Number one, that we're all experiencing accelerating planetary ecological collapse. That's true. Number two, that we're experiencing deepening instability and turbulence at every level of human affairs. That's true. Number three, simultaneously, we've unleashed exponential, unregulated artificial intelligence that is transforming our world. That is manifestly true. And number four, the US government is telling us that extraterrestrial beings, what they call non-human intelligences and non-human technologies, exist and have been here for some time. We are not alone. That's true. And if you look at these four data points, what emerges are four intelligences: human intelligence, nature intelligence, artificial intelligence, and cosmic intelligence. That's what's up for humanity. And how we interact with these other intelligences, which are distinct from and more advanced than human intelligence, and how we synergize and co-create with them is going to shape the next phase of human and planetary and cosmic history. It's an extraordinary moment. This time between 2025 and 2030 is going to be the most consequential time in the entire history of our kind. Because at one level, we're teetering on the brink of self-destruction. And at the other level, we have unprecedented opportunities for renewal as we expand our consciousness to include a larger ecology of sentient life. It's an extraordinary moment. We've been gifted to be in this moment. So each week, we're going to be delving into one of these four data points. And today, we're going to be delving into the second data point, that we're all experiencing deepening instability and turbulence at every level of human affairs. And there is no place on earth at this time that exemplifies deepening instability and turbulence than what's taking place in Israel's and the United States genocide in Gaza. So that's what we're going to dwell on today as we commemorate the second anniversary of the attack by Hamas on Israel on October 7th 2023, in response to which the Israelis launched an unprecedented genocidal mass slaughter of the Palestinians, taking to the next level the genocide that they've been conducting against the Palestinians for over a century now. And I want to take a few moments to comment on what's taking place, because as we convene right now, the ceasefire in Gaza is taking place. And Israelis are withdrawing some of their forces to certain perimeters inside Gaza. Very important. The Israelis are not leaving Gaza. They've created a very thin corridor between the Mediterranean Sea and a few miles in, a long strip to which the Palestinians are being allowed to return. And as we seek to understand what's going on here, it is very important that we be absolutely clear-eyed about what's being transacted and why. And I want to make two preliminary remarks, and then I want to talk about the ceasefire and the 20-point plan that Trump has articulated. And then we will open it up to our guest, Jim Gordon, and have a discussion of what he and his team are actually doing to ameliorate trauma in Gaza. But before we do that, I want to make the following comments. Number one, all this talk about this is Jewish land and that somehow they have the right to conduct the genocide against the Palestinians is completely flawed. This is not Jewish land any more than the land in North America belongs to the United States and not to the indigenous peoples who were here for thousands, tens of thousands of years before the Europeans showed up. That's the story of the Jews in Palestine. They've done DNA testing on the Palestinians, and 80% of the Palestinians have Nabatean DNA. The Nabateans were the first human settlers, as far as we know, in Palestine, well over 10,000 years ago, before the Neolithic Revolution in 8000 BC. The Palestinians have been in Palestine for as long as the Native Americans have been in North America, for thousands and thousands of years. Gaza City is one of the oldest cities in the entire world, along with Jericho, Damascus, and others, continuously inhabited for well over 10, 15,000 years by the Palestinians. And the Semites didn't even show up until about 1800 BC with Abraham. And he came and he mingled amongst them, was considered a friend. And his God, Yahweh, was one God among many. And then they went down into Egypt and vacated Palestine for over 400 years. And about 1000 BC, They came back under Joshua and started a campaign of genocide against the Palestinians to clear the land for Israel. They had it for a few centuries. And then in the 8th century, the 10 northern tribes were wiped out by the Assyrians. And 200 years later, the final 2 tribes were exiled, vanquished by the Babylonians, and taken off to Babylon. They were brought back by the Persians under Cyrus the Great. They existed for another 200 to 300 years, and then they were completely expelled by the Romans. And for the last 2,000 years, the Jews have been in a diaspora. And 100 years ago, they began to trickle back. And instead of doing it in the spirit of Abraham, embracing their Semitic cousins, the Arabs, they came in the spirit of Joshua with a Zionist ideology and began the campaign of genocide. So what we've been witnessing in the last 2 years is a continuation, not an exception, to the policy of ethnic cleansing for a people for whom that land is not native. The second point I want to make comes from an American survivor of the Holocaust, a fellow by the name of Chaim Zobner, who I saw interviewed a few days ago. And Mr. Zobner said something that really struck me, and I think it's really important for us to take this in. He said, in his mind, as a survivor of the Holocaust by the Germans, what's happening in Gaza is a Holocaust that is a lot worse than what they did to the Jews by the Germans. I was kind of shocked. So was the interviewer. But he said, think about it. What the Germans did was done in complete secrecy. Most of the German people didn't know. The world certainly didn't know. It was done by a very small cadre of technicians and corporate military personnel. It was often the case that the populations outside the death camps didn't know what was happening except by innuendo and rumor. What's happening now, said Mr. Zobner, is democratic. He says this is the first genocide in history that's been conducted by a democracy. Publicly, brazenly, with the majority support of the Israelis. And the collusion of the major Jewish institutions around the world, mostly in the United States and Israel and Europe. So that's very important for us to take in. And that's why I've said for 2 years now that what we're witnessing in Gaza is a crime of crimes. And the fact that both President Biden and President Trump have actively supported it with over $40 billion in aid and 7 vetoes in the United Nations Security Council to stop any pressure on Israel to cease and desist. It's a level of the collusion that has enabled this genocide to take place on the world stage, on social media, 24/7, 365. So that brings us to the ceasefire and what's really happening here. And I'm going to take a few minutes on this because it is really important that we be absolutely clear-eyed about what's taking place. It's understandable that we'll have some euphoria for the next couple of days as the Palestinians go back, the hostages are released in exchange for the hostages that the Israelis have taken, over 2,000. So there's going to be a hostage exchange. And then comes the hard part. And I want to take a few minutes so that we all understand what's going on here and have no illusions that the Israelis nor the Americans have any intent to actually stop the genocide. What they're seeking to do is, if you want to understand it metaphorically, is Oslo 2.0. In the early 1990s, under President Clinton, Israel and the United States prevailed on the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which then was headed up by Yasser Arafat, if you remember him, with the Norwegians negotiating a settlement called Oslo Accords. And in the Oslo Accords, what they basically agreed to was that the PLO would become an extension of the Israeli occupation of the West Bank. The PLO and the Israeli security services are integrated. The PLO arrests Palestinians in the West Bank, cooperates with the settlers on the West Bank, and has completely negated any representation of the Palestinian people in the West Bank towards statehood, except in occasional rhetoric. But on the West Bank, the governing Palestinian leadership is an extension of Israeli military occupation and political control of the West Bank. And that was one of the reasons, because at that time, the PLO also controlled Gaza, that Hamas rose up. Because the Palestinians says, wait a minute, the PLO is selling us out, which is exactly what happened with massive bribes. If you know the story, I can tell the story sometime of the Oslo Accords. And now, this is the 20-point plan, just so we're all ready for what's about ready to happen. So after the hostages are released, the Israelis have moved their troops back, thin sliver along the Mediterranean Sea at Gaza. And then the quid pro quo is, we'll go back a little bit more as long as Hamas completely disarms. We'll go back a little bit more as long as Hamas gives up every political leadership instrumentality. And we bring in an Arab Council, European Council, headed by Donald Trump, to oversee the establishment, not of a Palestinian state, but Trump's Club Med. Do you think they're going to rebuild Gaza for the Palestinians? They have no intent of building up Gaza again for the Palestinians. The plan is to emasculate the resistance like they did in the West Bank with the PLO, and then build Club Med. This 20-point plan had no participation with Hamas at all. It was designed by Jewish Zionists between the United States and Israel, with Trump's envoys, Steve Weiskopf and Jared Kushner. And between Witkoff and Kushner, they came up with this plan. So there is no peace plan, ladies and gentlemen. We need to be really clear about this. What there is Oslo 2.0. And the decision that the Hamas leadership had to make is, do we resist and they come in and just blow us to smithereens? Or do we finesse this given three factors that are new? Number one, Israel is actually lost. Just like they actually lost against Iran in the June attack by the United States and Israel. The Iranians hit Israel so hard that after 12 days, Netanyahu asked Trump to proceed with a ceasefire. Hamas is stronger today in Gaza than it was on October 6th. They had 20,000 militia back then. It's estimated by some they have at least 20,000, if not 30,000. Over 1,200 Israeli soldiers have been killed and thousands wounded in the fighting with Hamas over the last 2 years. They've been ferocious. Just like Chaim Weizmann, the young Jewish freedom fighter, was in the Warsaw Ghetto in 1942. In the sewers of Warsaw, holding off the Germans for a full month. Hamas has held off the Israelis with the tunnels, keeping the hostages. It's going to be viewed by history as an extraordinary victory by the insurgency. Make no mistake. And number two, simultaneously, there's been a complete collapse of Israeli reputation and credibility around the world. There have been hundreds of thousands of protesters all around the world. Italy has been essentially shut down. Palestine Action in the UK, which was outlawed as a terrorist organization, thousands of people have marched in the streets saying, "We are Palestine Action." Extraordinary what's been taking place. The flotilla of Greta Thunberg and the grandson of Nelson Mandela going in. And as you know, one of the boats actually made it to the shore and delivered aid. The cheering Palestinians made it through the blockade. More and more countries are recognizing Palestine as a state. And now France, the UK, Spain, others. And there's been, thirdly, a complete collapse of the MAGA support for Trump, as Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson and Candace Owen and Charlie Kirk abandon the Zionist line and realize that what was going on was Zionist genocide. And Charlie Kirk was fully aware of what he was doing and said to friends 2 days before he was killed, "I think they're going to kill me for this." And even though through Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle, they're buying up huge swaths of the American media and eliminating any critique of Israel on TikTok and MTV and CBS, and they're buying out CNN, and they're buying out Warner TV. They're buying out mainstream media after mainstream media to eliminate any criticism of Israel. Nevertheless, the people of the world have woken up. And Trump, in his own intuitive, crazy way, has understood that he's got to at least do something while not actually conceding the plan. And let me close with this. For the first time, a U.S. president is sending U.S. forces, 200, to monitor the ceasefire. So the next phase is going to see U.S. Israeli forces seeking to quell Hamas. And so the great drama of Palestinian liberation or Jewish demand for all the land as settler colonialists is going to be played out. So we need to be vigilant. We need to continue to protest. And we need to be alive to the layers and the complexities of this historical moment as we contemplate how people of goodwill like us need to bear witness and take the stands that we need to take for the future of humankind. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here on Humanity Rising. We appreciate your participation. Again, if you're interested in what we're doing with the State of the World Forum, which is going to be discussing Gaza in part, go to stateoftheworld.forum. You can register. We hope everybody will come. And now, my friends, I want to welcome Jim Gordon to the program. We wanted Jim to come on because he has a team in Gaza that's been working to ameliorate trauma there for many years, including over the last 2 years. He is a medical doctor. He's the founder of the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. He worked under the Clinton and Bush administrations, setting up the Center for Alternative Medicine Policy. And we are very pleased to have him on the Humanity Rising program here today. So Jim, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. I've been to Jim's house several times. He lives here in Washington, D.C. So Jim, why don't we just start with any comment you would like to make on my opening remarks, and then we'll dive into what you're doing there in Gaza with your team.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me here, Jim. It's good to be here. And first, let me say that we have parallel programs in Israel and Gaza. We're the only Center for Mind Body Medicine is the only organization working with psychological trauma at scale in both Israel and Gaza, and we have been for more than 20 years. So on this day, um, shortly after October 7th, I mourn the deaths in Israel of October 7th and the destruction that came there. And I mourn as well all the deaths that have come to Gaza in the 2 years since then. So that mourning colors my limited but real hopefulness about this peace plan. So I want to say that. I also want to say that we have managed to work with Israeli governments, with collaboration from the Israeli governments, in helping us get in and out of Gaza, as well as with governments in Gaza, with Fatah and Hamas. And so we're in a position where we don't take political stands. We have to, we're there as humanitarians, we're there for the healing of both people. And the great challenge I see, and I thought you were going to go into this more, the great challenge is in raising our consciousness in both Gaza and Israel about coming together in a whole different way and what that's going to require. And it's going to be extraordinarily arduous on both sides for somewhat different reasons. But that's, for me, that's that's my part of the challenge. By the way, I wrote a piece which I'm going to put out on social media 7 months ago, inviting President Trump to come with me to Gaza. I'm saying it's a lot better instead of forcing out the people of Gaza, keep them there. They're really industrious, they're intelligent, the wages are lower than in the US, and they will rebuild Gaza with you. Please come. Well, I don't know if he read what I wrote, but now, 7 months later, he is proposing that. So I see it, I understand the, you know, who knows what's going to happen and the skepticism. I have that myself. But I am hopeful that this could be the beginning of something more promising than what you're saying. I understand the dangers as you articulated them. But I do see this partly because the people of Gaza are the vast majority of people in Gaza are neither Fatah nor Hamas. Our organization is not Fatah or Hamas. We work with both of them where we need to. And my experience, I've been to Gaza 20 times, been to Israel as many times, and not recently. And I hope to go back in the next couple of weeks.
Cool.
What I've seen is people they're not primarily political people. I mean, they understand the politics. They're actually quite sophisticated in Gaza. Gaza, by the way, has a higher literacy rate than the US, which is very interesting. That's one of the things that I'd like to want to convey to President Trump. You've got people you can really work with here. Um, but so they understand the politics, but by and large, and politics is a dangerous sport in both Israel and Gaza. By and large, the people in Gaza are not for Hamas or for Fatah, I would say. That's my experience of the last 20 years. They're for wanting to live a civilized life. And there are wonderful things in Gaza. I can stop. Let me just say a couple more things about that. Wonderful things in Gaza that I feel are absent here and that I mourn the destruction because it's a destruction of a way of life, a really strong communal and mutually supportive way of life in Gaza. And when I go there, I feel like I'm part of a very big family.
Mhm.
Incidentally, I feel similarly in Israel when I go there. People take me in, we're all connected with each other. I think that there are so many similarities in they are cousins. I think you may even use that word. The Israelis and the Palestinians are ultimately cousins, and there's so many similarities. And when we're able to bring them together, little as we were before this war on occasion, they were able to see, they were able to get over some of those prejudice and preconceptions and fears and anger that they have and see the humanity. So that's my hope, and that's what I'm focused on for the future. And we can talk about what we've been doing in Gaza and Israel since this war began as well.
Well, I think that would be very interesting to people, Jim. And I think one question, since you're a specialist on in trauma, is how you how you deal with trauma in a situation of genocide. It's different than trauma in a normal situation. And I just wonder whether how you sort of evaluate the trauma sort of in extremis that we're seeing in Gaza with the trauma that you're dealing through the Center for Mind Body Medicine in different parts of the world? Or is there no difference? In your experience, is trauma just trauma, and the degree of trauma is essentially a relative phenomenon to the individual? Let's start there. How do you would you characterize the trauma going on in Palestine under current conditions?
Well, it first of all, I've been working in the middle of wars for 25 years, and in the middle of wars that are brutal. The war in Kosovo, for example, where I
Mhm.
was there, and what I learned. Just let me frame it a bit. What I learned after going to Bosnia, somewhat after the Dayton Accords were signed and peace was brought to Bosnia, is the society was totally shattered. Everything had fallen apart. Um, Not only there's tremendous residual animosity between the Serbs, the Bosniaks, and the Croats. I mean, they're just after all that killing and alcoholism, drug abuse, beating of women, abuse of children off the charts in Bosnia because the whole society gets just we're looking that whole society where probably 250,000 people were killed and
Mhm.
50,000 people put in rape camps, men as well as women in rape camps. Whole society was shattered. So it was clear to me from that point on that the time to work with trauma is when the war begins. So that's the first point I want to make. So, for example, as soon as the Russian invasion of Ukraine happened in February 2022, within weeks I was there, meeting people, organizing on the ground, getting introduced to mental health people, political people, community organizers, etc. And we began our work then. Uh, Haiti is a whole society in trauma. We've been working in Haiti since the earthquake, and it's just gotten worse. Just gotten worse. So I'm used to working in whole societies that have been traumatized. Uh, Gaza, the level of destruction, of course, is even greater than in these other places. The whole place, everything, basically everything has been destroyed. All most of the hospitals, schools, universities, homes,
Mm.
stores, the whole. So that level of destruction is greater. Um, the work that we're doing there has been it's both one of the words that they use in Gaza that people use in my talk, and I'm continual contact with our team in Gaza. And once a week for the last few months, I've been leading a 2 hour, 2.5 hour group with 8 or 10 members of our now 70-member team in Gaza, giving them a chance to talk about what's going on, sharing some of my thoughts and guidance about using our techniques. What is so striking is the level of despair in Gaza. That many of the people who come to us are ready to kill themselves. They say, I'd rather kill myself than be killed by the bombs. I'd rather kill myself than starve to death. I'd rather kill myself than see more of my children, or if they haven't had children die, than see my children die. That's what they're saying. And I understand that. I think the level of destruction, the higher the level of destruction, uh, the greater that sense of despair is. And everything familiar has been
Yeah.
eliminated. What is remarkable, so and what they say, the word is unimaginable. It is unimaginable, and I heard this a dozen times. What is happening to us is unimaginable. What is also unimaginable to me is the capacity for resilience among
Mhm.
the people of Gaza. And what we offer, what our team offers, and people want to learn more, they can look on our website, cmbm.org, and both see what we're doing in Gaza and also what we're doing in Israel. And they can take a look at my book, Transforming Trauma, The Path to Hope and Healing. So we're offering many self-care techniques to people. But the thing that makes the most difference immediately is that somebody from our team is there with them.
Mm.
Who has had the same experience, more or less, lived in the same places, had to move 8, 10, 12 times, had their homes destroyed.
So your team is actually moving around with the Palestinians as they're being evacuated and forced into free zones. Have you lost any members of your team to the
Yes,
bombing? And
yes. Four of our beloved faculty, and these are people I know, have hung out with them, eaten in their homes, were killed. We had a team of 20 initially.
Mm,
Four of those 20 wonderful people were killed fairly early on in the war. And
mhm,
just about everybody has lost family members. Jamil Abdulati, the psychologist who leads our program, two of his sisters were killed, and I think 30 members of his extended family. And that's not an exception. Just
mhm,
about everybody in Gaza has lost one or more people. What makes a difference, though, for people is when our team welcomes them, when they listen to them,
mhm,
when they uh, and they know that they have been understood and that their humanity, the fullness of their humanity, is being recognized. And then our team teaches people simple techniques so that it's not, they don't stop the bombs from falling, but they stop people from being so totally freaked out every time a bomb falls. So they have the startle, but instead of being startled all night long and being anxious and unable to sleep, they have that startle response. They learn how to calm themselves down using, say, a deep breathing technique or getting up and shaking and dancing and shouting, which they're doing in the midst of bombs falling. And then they're able to, okay, come back to the reality, which is not normal, but they come back and they're able to function. They're able to take care of their kids. They're able to be with their family members. So that's what we're doing. And it's what is coming out, and this is what I'm hoping to, emphasize here, and also when I go to Gaza and as we move ahead, is that people are extraordinarily resilient and compassionate. They are not interested in revenge, which is very, very interesting. They're angry. They're furious. How can we be treated like this? But at the same time, they have a sense that they have the wisdom, which is amazing to me. And we'll see how it goes. But so many of the people I work with have the wisdom to know this is not the way to go. This kind of fighting, and it's not time for us to then take our revenge. Hamas did that, Israel did this. We're good. No, they want to live full lives, and even some of them are contemplating the possibility of connecting with Israelis in a different way. Possibly, as Israelis are too. I want to emphasize that on the Israeli side, the trauma is a whole other kind of thing. And it's like October 7th keeps getting replayed and replayed and replayed in the minds of Israelis. But many of them are beginning to, and you can see it in the demonstrations in the streets, they're beginning to realize this is not who we want to be. This is not the way we want our government to go. Now, they haven't changed it, but they are also our team, for example, is reaching out and working with people within Israel. The Israelis call them Israeli Arabs. They call themselves Palestinians, but they're citizens of Israel. They're working with them and Jews together. So the hope is there. In the past, we have worked with Israelis and Palestinians together, and it's a very interesting uh, kind of work. And the hope is that in the future we'll be able to do that as well. That's our part of what we can do, what we are doing.
Well, let me ask you a little bit more about the Israeli, because that's fascinating that you're working both sides. One of the comments that many people have made, and certainly That was the comment that Chaim Zobner, who I cited at the Holocaust survivor in my opening remarks, he was struck at how large a percentage of Israelis actively support the extermination of all Palestinians. And I'm just wondering, when you're working in Israel, how does your team kind of deal with that level of I would almost say hatred or fear? Because you're right, the trauma is the same in some ways, but it's different. One is the trauma of the dominator, occupier, and the other is the trauma of the sort of the occupied. And it's like the difference between the trauma of the Native Americans in this country and the trauma of the white settlers. So speak to us just a little bit more about
Sure.
that, the trauma of the occupying supremacists.
Well, a lot the one of the cruel paradoxes of Hamas's attack is that many of the people whom they killed and who took hostage were the people who were close to Gaza, who were connected with people in Gaza and wanted peace with the Palestinians. And those people, so those people were killed rather than the hardliners that you're describing, the people who are fanatic, like the right-wing members of Netanyahu's cabinet. So the people we work with are the people who have suffered in Israel. And I can't speak to those who, want
Yeah,
Palestinians exterminated, because I don't think too many of those people who have that kind of um, mentality, that want another people exterminated wherever, they're not very easy to work with psychologically, and they're not very interested. They have their
yeah,
they have their worldview. Everything is the way it's supposed to be. It's a
exactly,
matter of life and death, and they're not giving it up. And that's true here in the United States as well.
exactly.
Um, just a aside that you're reminding me of, after the January 6th attack on the Capitol, I began to work with the number of Democratic members of Congress who were traumatized, seriously traumatized, because the mob wanted to kill them. And I said, how about inviting Republicans to come as well? None of them wanted to come. Now, I'm not saying the Republicans are responsible for for the sort of murderous mentality, but they have their fixed ideas, and they
Exactly.
hold on to those
Yeah,
fixed ideas.
yeah.
And coming into a situation, the work we do, we create small groups. We may be working with 200 people, but then we'll have 20 small groups. And in those small groups, people come together, and when we say, you're not here to fix anybody. You're not here to
Mm,
argue. You're not here to interpret. And I'm not either. You're here to make discoveries that will help and heal you.
exactly.
Other people speak. Shut up. Listen. And if you can learn something, fantastic. If you don't learn anything, that's okay too. What's going on with you is the question. So the people we work with in Israel are the people who are hurting very much. And those include the survivors of the rave on October 7th, the people who lived in the kibbutzes near in the kibbutzim near Gaza, who lost family members and lost their homes, people who were in the middle of the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in the north, and also returning IDF soldiers who are many of them deeply traumatized uh,
Yes.
by their service in Gaza. You've probably seen that there's significant increase in suicide among IDF soldiers.
Mhm. And
So,
desertion and refusal to serve.
yeah,
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
worked a lot with soldiers coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, and many of the same. I'm sort of recognizing many of the same. What was I doing there? It was terrible. It was, what happened to me was terrible. What happened to my buddies was terrible. What we did, I don't know that I believe in it. And I believed in it. I'm not sure I believe. So people are coming who have suffered. And so it's a different kind of work, because they're not being bombed, because it's not happening.
Mhm.
In our work in Gaza, where we've worked since this war began, we've at least taught basic skills to over 200,000 people. basic self-care skills. And we've had 5 session groups with I think 5 or 6 thousand of the most traumatized people. So it's different. Bombs are falling, drones are overhead. There's not enough food.
Well,
Israel,
I think that what your central point, Jim, is really a profound one, that trauma takes different shapes with the person traumatized and the person traumatizing. So whether it's the occupier or the occupied, that's a traumatic situation that works its toxicity in both ways. It's never the case that the occupied are traumatized, but the occupier is not. Both suffer from the trauma that anytime you hurt another human being, you hurt yourself in more subtle but equally profound ways. And therefore, the techniques that a therapist and a doctor like you has to use on traumatized people, wherever they are, whatever their motivation or history, is a very complex one.
yeah, but I think in Israel you really have to be clear about it. The trauma, it's not that there isn't other trauma that's happened with Israelis before, but the trauma that they're dealing with now is the trauma that arises out of October 7th. It may well be bringing up other other instances either in their personal history, and you see this with trauma everywhere. So if you're traumatized by a current event, it may also bring up what happened in the family, what happened to your ancestors. All of that may emerge. But in Israel, the real focus is on, with our current work now, is on what happened on October 7th or what happened in the succeeding 2 years to people who were directly affected because they were in the military and went into Gaza. So it's not. I don't think that they are now. There may be a realization that will come over time, and we can talk about that. The realizations that will come in Israel,
Mm,
how
mm,
the necessity for ending the occupation. There are already many people over the years in Israel who were for ending the occupation. They have not been. Some of my good friends are leaders in the Labor Party, and no, labor is now seriously diminished,
yeah.
and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so that sense has um, that sense of the damage being done to you because you're occupying. People understand that. Yitzhak Frankenthal was a wonderful man. I don't know if you've ever run across him. He was a very conservative, Orthodox Jewish businessman whose son was killed in the West Bank. He was in the IDF. And instead of wanting to take revenge, what he did is he created an organization of Israeli and Palestinian families who had lost fighters and who lost family members on both sides. That consciousness is there. That's the consciousness that we need to revive in Israel and also bring to God.
Let me just bring in a story of the chief negotiator of Hamas, that helped negotiate this deal, in Sharm el-Sheikh a few days ago. He was one of the people that the Israelis tried to kill when they attacked Qatar several weeks ago. And he lost his son,
Yeah.
and his wife was gravely injured. And many of the people in the delegation had people close to them who were killed. And yet, several weeks later, he's sitting across the table from the very people who were seeking to murder him and got his son. And he was asked, "How could you do this?" And he says, "I do it for the future." And I thought, whoa, what an elegant consciousness that if I lost one of my sons, Jim, I don't know if I would have the elegance of spirit to do what the chief negotiator of Hamas did. But as you're saying, if that's the bar, to suffer the trauma and not lose your resilience in forgiving and elevating through the transmutation of all those negative emotions that you surely feel into a reconciliation process that can heal and liberate both sides.
Absolutely. And that's what our work is about really, and not because we're even saying it the way you're saying it, which is right on, correct. But people come to those conclusions.
Exactly.
That's what we are seeing, certainly seeing in Gaza, and I think beginning to see in Israel as well, is that it's enough. It's enough. Dayenu is
Enough.
it's enough. It's enough. And that can come. In fact, as horrible as trauma is, that is the grace that can come out of trauma, that came out of that negotiator, that I see every day in the people of Gaza, is that coming out and that
Mm,
the generosity of spirit. And I'm seeing that's happening in Israel as well. And my hope is that
yeah.
our work can help to facilitate that on both sides and continue to.
Yeah. Well, Jim, thank you for sharing your deep insights and wisdom today. And I really want to acknowledge your courage, not only over the decades, but to dive into Gaza on October 8th and to do it on both sides and to do it with a skill that is really making a difference in people's lives. I can't think of anything more needed right now in this reconciliation process. Because if we could pull it off, a true reconciliation between Palestinian and Israeli, we would have set a model that could perhaps heal the genocide and make sure that the vow the world took in the aftermath of the last genocide, never again, is actually fulfilled.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Jim, I don't know whether you can join the after chat to talk to people for a few minutes.
Sure.
You'll see the link, everyone, in the chat box. Stan just put it in. Jim, your link is in the Zoom reminder you got for today at the bottom of your email. I'll send it to you right now. But this is the future, everyone. No matter how deep the pain, no matter how excruciating the trauma, it's people like Jim Gordon. It's people like the people in Gaza and Israel that are working the problem of trauma, that are really the messengers of peace in our time. So thank you, Jim. Thank you very much. Bye.